This is the saddest fucking background. There. Anything can be improved with a few plastic leaves. Except salad. And fire. And like a million other things, actually. I often hear stories of people who were mostly okay with themselves up until a certain age, and then at some point, which usually coincides with moving or starting a new school or just reaching a certain age, they started to feel like they needed to change themselves in order to fit in more, or to be more in line with what others expected them to be. And of course, this is different for everyone, and the reasons for this vary greatly from person to person. Perhaps their parents have started putting more pressure on them because they were not a child anymore and were now expected to be a person with a future, going towards something and not just existing more or less without purpose. Or their surroundings have changed and the need to fit in has become more crucial, or their hormonal balance has changed and that changed their perception of themselves and the people around them, etc. For me, it was kind of the opposite, which I guess also happens to a lot of people. Up until I was about 13 or so, I was actively pretending to be something that I was not. I think it was probably just that I was really desperate to be liked. Basically, I was a clown, a jokester. I made everyone laugh and made no one feel uncomfortable. People would actually call me over to their company because they wanted to be entertained. I was literally the jester in every situation. I don't know if anyone genuinely cared about me, but everyone sort of liked me because I was funny and easy to be around. But in truth, that wasn't really me. It was a veneer. Inside, I was always kind of sad and gloomy, and I thought about things that scared people if I said them out loud, so I didn't say them out loud. For instance, I remember standing on my grandmother's balcony when I was about 7 and thinking, if I jumped, would it kill me, or would I get stuck in the branches? There were lots of trees. Do many kids have thoughts like that? I don't know. Maybe. Either way, somewhere in middle school, the jester persona has started to wear on me. I don't remember the entire process of the realization that this isn't really working, because, to be honest, I don't remember much of my childhood. Some of it I just blocked out. Other parts I don't remember just because I have really bad memory. But I do remember one moment, which, while it wasn't particularly dramatic, has really stuck with me because of how much it affected me. My English teacher gave me a story to read and said, I think you'll really like this. This seems right up your alley. I don't remember what the story actually was, but I do remember that it was dumb, shallow, and just the opposite of anything that I would ever actually like. And yet my teacher thought that this somehow represented me. And of course she did. Why wouldn't she? That was the persona that I was presenting to the world on a daily basis. So of course she thought that a piece of simplistic comedy would be just the thing for me. Doesn't matter that I once took an IQ test for fun and outscored it, or that I constantly thought about death. To the outside world, I was an uncomplicated clown with no hidden emotional depths because I was terrified of showing my inner self to anyone for fear that they would stop liking me. But eventually I realized that I don't want to be liked in this way anymore. I want to be liked for who I am, or not at all. And that wasn't an easy decision for me, because I'm not going to pretend like I'm one of those cool kids that don't care what others think about them. I care. I want to be liked. Probably because my parents are bullies and I spent my formative years desperate to be loved by someone, anyone, because all I was getting at home was abuse, neglect, and mockery. So I went out into the world ready to mold myself into whatever would make people like me. And when I noticed that People gravitated toward me when I made myself into a spectacle of silly jokes and uncomplicated physical comedy. I decided that that was what I was going to be. But I know now that that was never going to work in the long run, because there's no way that I would be content with being liked for a fake persona that I presented to the world in order to gain superficial affection. So eventually I decided that I would prefer to be liked by a small group of people that actually appreciated me for who I really am, or possibly by no one at all, than to be sort of liked by a whole bunch of people that thought that I was something that I really wasn't. So around age 13 or so, I dropped my jester shtick and I started to let a bit more of my inner self out. And that involved a lot less slapstick, a lot more gloom, and a general shift in the kind of humor that I employed. This was also incidentally around the time when I started wearing predominantly black, stopped wearing makeup or high heels, stopped doing a whole bunch of things that I only did because I thought that this was what made people like me. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not implying that there's anything inherently wrong with makeup or high heels, but this is something that you should only do if you want to, not because it's expected of you or because you think people won't like you as much if you don't. Also, why the fuck was I doing that stuff at 12? My parents actively forbade me from studying music, but they had no problem buying me high heels and makeup. What the fuck kind of child-raising priorities did these people have? Anyway, for a while, I was, I guess what one might call emo. Even though emo wasn't really a thing at the time, I mean it was, presumably, but it wasn't really mainstream yet. I'm quite old. So I was the only emo in town, which is incidentally very emo. Obviously this shift made me a lot less popular, especially with my parents, who constantly mentioned how great I'd been before and how difficult and different I became. They certainly hoped that it was a phase. I kind of hoped so too. I developed a number of conflicts with my teachers because I stopped actively hiding my intelligence, and that's apparently something that a lot of teachers really hate. I started developing opinions on political and social issues, and that certainly wouldn't gain me any popularity points in the long run. I became a target of a lot more bullying. Even though I'd been bullied before, because, you know, the clown persona might have been more popular, it still was something that a certain contingent of kids believed to be very bullyable. Now, however, I was being bullied both by those people and by the people who thought that I was cool when I was a clown. Besides, I started reacting differently to bullying. I stopped just laughing it off and clowning around. I started actually saying what I thought and expressing emotions more openly, which naturally just made things a whole lot worse. I also attempted to stop hiding symptoms of mental illness as vehemently as I had before, but that didn't really last because my parents actually punished me for exhibiting symptoms of depression, anxiety, and autism. Yep, I was actually punished for having depression. Fun times. Also, not actually that uncommon, unfortunately. And I mean, I know now that I have mental illness. At the time, I just thought that I was selectively defective because my parents constantly told me that all of my problems come from laziness and weakness, and not anything that could or should be treated. But that's a conversation for another day. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't entirely abandon humor or physical comedy. I think in essence I'm still a clown, it's just that now I'm a sad, sarcastic clown that jokes about death and existential irrelevance. Considerably fewer people find me funny now, but if your sense of humor happens to match mine, I'm fucking hilarious! I actually think that one of the most likely scenarios for my death would be that I will do something dangerous because I'll think that it would be funny. Of course, this was just a tiny step on the road towards self-acceptance. There would be many more epiphanies and surges of self-understanding. I mean, I was a child at the time. I didn't even know or understand a lot of things, especially considering that I didn't have the internet or anything. So there were many things within myself that I didn't even touch at the time, like ethics, sexuality, ethnic identity, hand dominance. I'll talk about that later. But it was a start, and, well, did it make me happier? No, it did not. If anything, it made my life harder and a lot less fun, but it was inevitable because I understand that I could not live behind a fake persona in perpetuity. Sooner or later it would destroy me from the inside out, and that would be so much worse than any external pain caused by people in reaction to me being myself. And honestly, this isn't about being happy. This isn't about doing what you want or following your dreams or any of that motivational crap. This is about a realization that what you're presenting to the world is different from what you are on the inside, and deciding whether you want to keep doing that or if you'd rather be yourself and face the consequences. And I feel I should mention that I don't think that creating a fake persona and presenting it to the world is necessarily a bad thing. I think, as is the case with most things, it's all dependent on the person and the situation. If you're happy keeping yourself to yourself and presenting a veneer to everyone else, then that's that. If you feel safer that way, if you prefer it that way for whatever reason, then that's perfectly fine. Besides, sometimes hiding parts of yourself might be necessary for your survivability. I mean, I'm a queer foreigner of Jewish descent living in suburban Russia against my will. I don't necessarily reveal every part of myself in every situation because in some situations it might simply not be safe. So let's hope my bigoted upstairs neighbor doesn't see this video. Anyway, I'm in no way implying that everyone should drop their charades and embrace any and all parts of themselves and fuck the consequences. Be yourself might be one of the most popular motivational phrases of all time, but motivational phrases don't always mesh well with reality. People are different, situations are different. Not everyone has the luxury to be themselves. However, if the mask that you're keeping on is making you so miserable that it's no longer worth whatever you're gaining by keeping it on, then taking it off might be something worth considering. For the teenage me, that was the only way to go. And of course I was lucky enough that what I was hiding behind my fake persona wasn't so socially unacceptable that I would be putting myself in danger simply by revealing it. That would come later. Still, it was quite a difficult and important moment for me because I was so desperate to be liked that I knew that by giving up this mask, I would be losing something that was crucial to my self-esteem and my existence in general. But in the end, being myself was still more important than being liked or even being safe. And realistically, it probably lowered my quality of life quite significantly in a lot of different ways. But I'm still glad that I did it, because when I look back on my younger self, I cringe. Not because there was anything particularly wrong with the person that I was pretending to be, but just because it was so utterly not me that it seems wrong that that person ever existed. I'm glad that she's dead now. She probably wasn't all that funny anyway. And really, I'm still working on it. I've had other moments of self-discovery throughout my life, as I guess most people do. I had a similar surge of self-acceptance and understanding when I was about 19 or so, and if I live long enough, perhaps I'll have another, or maybe several others. I still haven't embraced or revealed or understood every part of myself. For one, I still sometimes choose to keep my mouth shut about the things that matter to me because I'm afraid that if I express myself openly, people will stop liking me. But it haunts me every time that I do that, and I admire people who fight every battle placed before them and are honest about every thought and feeling that they have on the things that they believe to be important. I really hope someday to be like that. But I might have to get some anxiety meds first. Oh, and by the way, I rebranded. I'm using my real name now instead of the screen name that I used to use before for my channel. Not that anyone would have noticed, but I feel like this is a good moment to do it.